I think so.
Okay. No, that's
No?
Le Pen.
What
Did
do
you
mean?
put that in the title?
Yeah.
Okay. There they are.
Am I here now?
You are here now. Here, I'm just going to help you while I'm here.
You're
doing
nervous.
an excellent job, Leah.
I can't do this machine. I gotta practice it more. But the problem is practicing it means you're going live.
Right, exactly.
So I'm not exactly sure I like that.
And then I'm going to get your chat set up here.
Could you just make sure that I'm here?
You're
Hi,
here.
everybody.
Welcome back to Resistance Chicks.
Looks like I probably initiated it at 1111. Welcome back to Resistance Chicks, Remembrance Day, the ending of the World War One. Play what?
I don't know, whatever you brought up here.
No.
Okay.
No, I'm not. No, I'm doing everything back here.
All right.
Because I don't want to mess myself up.
So
hey, guys. So
tonight we're going to do something.
Yeah. Michelle's outside. If you didn't catch her live stream, here she is. She's actually outside. You can't see her right now.
Facebook people right here.
Facebook people right there.
YouTube people right here.
Hi, YouTube people.
Bye, people.
Hi, YouTube people. So I need you all again to be my Resistance Chicks warriors in the chat. Because I have a really great show for you, and I need you to tell me if you can't hear me, if you can't see me, if something goes wrong. I will be watching the chat, but I'm so glad to have you guys here. Today is a really exciting day, and so we decided to split our broadcast into two because I have so much news to share with you that's going on over the pond over there in on that other continent, and then the island thingy, UK. Just being silly. So today, you guys in the UK and France and all over Europe are celebrating the end of World War One. Sorry, it's the 100-year anniversary of the marking of the end of World War One, and I have some really neat things that I want to share with you. But I thought I don't want to mix the two and start talking about a terror attack in Australia and all this craziness that's going on and take away from remembering the fallen soldiers and kind of breaking down what has happened since World War One and the atrocities that have happened since then, from the rise of communism. Poland had their marching and wonderful Independence Day march, and I want to celebrate that with them as well. I have a lot of video to come and bring to you and kind of break that down. Hey guys, so I'm so glad. Yeah, so we're going to really go into Poland tonight. If you guys can stick around with us, it'll be 5, I think Michelle decided to do 5 p.m. Eastern time. So 4 hours from now. So we'll take a little break in between this broadcast. I'm going to make this a little bit shorter, but I do have a lot to share with you. And I think I really want to start with the horrible attack in Australia, which didn't get any media coverage, any media play, but there was a terror attack in Australia. Hey guys, 300,000 Poles in the Independence Day March. Very excited about that. I did not know that Tommy Robinson and wife there in Australia. Is that a fact? I haven't heard that one. UK is lighting all the beacons right now. Poland march in independence. Macron needs kicking up the rear for what he said about America. He has his little European army that he's working on to fight us. Like, seriously? Are you joking me right now? You have your little European army. Hang on. This is Jasper trying to get up. Okay. All right. There we go. One-man show. Tell me if you can't see me if the dogs move the camera. Okay, so going to Australia, mate. Australia mourns the victim of a Somali migrant terrorist. I'm not even kidding. This is really awful. There's video that I'm going to show you. Hollywood superstar Russell Crowe led tribute Saturday to the true gentleman, 74-year-old Sisto Malaspina, a doyen of Melbourne's thriving cafe culture who was stabbed to death Friday during a rush hour terror attack as crowds gathered at Malaspina's Pellegrini Cafe to lay flowers and tokens of remembrance. Australian acting legend Russell Crowe led a flood of tributes online. He says, "My heart is broken." And he says, "I've been going to Pellegrini since 1987. I've never been to Melbourne without dropping in on my man Sisto, my sweet loyal friend, stabbed in the street by a madman." Melbourne is Australia's second largest city, and it's horrible. It's horrible what happened. It was another foreign-born resident of the city, Somali-born Australian Hassan, can't even say it, who carried out the deadly knife rampage. The 30-year-old fled with his family from war-ravaged Somalia to Australia as a child in the 1980s. He was killed on Friday afternoon after driving a 4x4 laden with gas cylinders into the city center and stabbing 3 passers-by before being confronted by members of the public and armed officers. Now, I want to get this video for you. Where are you? I thought that was my next video. We're going to, Tommy Robinson, I do know, is out on bail. So, here is the video. This is a pretty graphic video. If So I think there's an even longer video online somewhere. It was pretty crazy what happened here. He obviously is not mentally sound. But here's just a passersby, even after the guy has been shot, helping to subdue this man. 2 survivors were rushed to the hospital for treatment, 1 in a suspected critical condition. The incident began after the attacker drove his utility vehicle loaded with gas cylinders we talked about into a pedestrian a curb, and his car burst into flames. I guess it was supposed to be a big car bomb, but it just kind of, you know, burned as it on its own. Then this fight began with the local police challenging this man, and a bystander used like the shopping cart to try to end the stabbings. I'm gonna see if I can get. I thought Breitbart would have the whole article, the whole video. Australia attack. Let's see if we can get the attack here on Twitter. There should be. Let's see. There should be some videos here. Let's go ahead and see. Australian Prime Minister does what no Western leader has dared to do. PN Scott Morrison refers to the extremist Islam as evil and challenges Islamic leaders in Australia to root out the ideology.
Violent, extremist Islam that opposes our very way of life. I'm the first to protect religious freedoms in this country. But it also means I must be the first to call out religious extremism. Religious extremism takes many forms around the world, and no religion is immune from it. That is the lesson of history, and sadly modern history as well. But here in Australia, we would be kidding ourselves if we did not call out the fact that the greatest threat of religious extremism in this country is the radical and dangerous ideology of extremist Islam. I applaud, and I know many of them personally, working in my own city here, as some of you may know, the brave and passionate Australians in the Muslim community who know that their children and their communities are at risk from these evil thieves who will come in and prey on their community, on their vulnerable people, on their children. Like all Australians, they want the best for their kids and their communities. And I commend these Australians for the leadership and courage that I know they have had to show to protect their community and their fellow Australians, often at great risk to themselves and their families. But there is a special responsibility on religious leaders to protect their religious communities and to ensure that dangerous teachings and ideologies do not take root here. They must be proactive, they must be alert, and they must call this out in their communities and more broadly for what it is. And we must all work respectfully together, government, community, religious leaders, to ensure that we continue to prevail in the face of this evil.
Amen. Yeah, it's a sticky situation when you have. I had a conversation with a person last night, and she knows people who have taken Trump's rhetoric on immigrants or whatever, and she believes that it's caused animus and animosity and anger and violence and hatred. And there's a march in Poland, and there were some signs up that said things like white Europe or white Poland. We have evil in this world. And when calling out Islamic extremism, if that causes, unfortunately, some people to be right-wing extremists, it's a crazy balancing act, because you have a hatred and animosity that can be created because people are not all good, you guys. Not all people are good. And that's the bottom line. Not all people want to follow goodness and love and kindness. And so when we call out Islamic extremism, we're saying stop hurting people, right? That's all that we're saying. We're not saying your color of your skin does this, or your even just like a normal belief system does it. But it's an ideology, it's a mindset that can be had for hate as well, for skin colors and things like that. So I'm going to show you this video here. The Australian attack, let's see.
Of Melbourne on Friday. An innocent man killed in the street, a man who many believe was the heart and soul of Melbourne. We saw other people injured seriously. We saw brave police officers confront a terrorist. We saw selfless civilians take up their meagre efforts, their meagre weapons of a shopping trolley and a chair to try and stop the terrorists. We saw the attacker gunned down in the street. We saw a city gripped by fear. Yes, yet again, Australia has seen an Islamist extremist terrorist attack, and yet again, it's been perpetrated by somebody who's a welcome immigrant into this country. It is a massive problem. I've got a lot more to say about this, but before I do, let me just give you a little bit of an insight into the innocent victim here, a man so many people around the country have come to know over the years. Sisto Malaspina, of course, who ran Pellegrini's in Burke Street, is known to so many people. I've been sent this video as an Italian documentary about Italians who are making themselves famous around the world. Just have a look at this to get a taste of exactly what sort of a man Sisto was.
Tanti hanno anche imparato un po' di italiano con noi. Dicevo, la scuola di italiano.
This is the Italian school. You come into Pellegrini, you will be spoken to in just Italian.
Quando vengo da Pellegrini mi parlate solo in italiano. Ciao, buongiorno.
Ciao, buongiorno.
Spaghetti senza formaggio. E vengono accolti non da cliente ma da
not just
amici.
customers, but friends.
Io li chiamo friends of Pellegrini.
Wow.
What a brilliant man, what a brilliant immigrant to this country, tragically and senselessly taken out, killed in broad daylight.
I think that's a perfect example of correct immigration. Becoming part of a community, loving the people. becoming a heart and soul in a community. That is the kind of migrants that every country should want. And if you're not going to be that kind of person, then no, you don't get to just randomly come into a country and destroy it.
On the street by another immigrant to this country. Now, despite Martin Place, despite Parramatta, despite Endeavour Hills, despite what we saw in Bourke Street, other attacks foiled over the years, hundreds of people barred from leaving the country to join Islamic State, others in jail because of those foiled plots. Despite all of this, we still have people in this country who are more focused on jihad denialism than on confronting the Islamist terror threat. People who, rather than focus on the innocent victims and the possibility of more innocent victims, take umbrage at the Prime Minister actually just boldly calling out what we're confronting here, what we've long confronted here, and that is radical Islamist extremist terrorism. Yet again, it's been on our streets, but yet again, there are people who are more concerned with a government or a politician actually calling it out and calling it what it is. Here's Labor's Anne Alley.
I think the Prime Minister needs to do a little bit of Terrorism 101 before he starts talking.
Terrorism 101 before your Prime Minister starts talking. Okay, here's the whole video I want to show you guys of what happened here. You can see the car on fire here. And this must be an immigrant, like, section. Because it sounds like Asian people. So, oh my gosh. I meant to tell you, this is graphic. That was the wonderful, beautiful Italian man we just saw. This is so incredibly sad. Because we have his face. Now, look at this. Here's the guy. I don't know why the officer didn't begin to shoot him already. A bystander, I mean, using a shopping cart. Here, this guy is just literally insane. Literally insane. Going around with a knife. Stabbing people. And so here he goes trying to stab the police. And there he gets shot. Somebody with a chair. Gonna help the police. So many citizens here helping the police. This is just crazy. And for why? Why? Was he sitting in a mosque somewhere? I have no idea. Hey guys, shopping trolley man hero? Absolutely. You don't want problems with Muslims. Stay out of their country. Stop killing their people by the millions and creating failed states. You know, I get it. But, you know, this problem is historic and not necessarily new. But I do think that you bring up a good point that I believe that our CIA has helped to spur these ideologies on. You see the Iranian Revolution to horrible Islamic dictatorship, and our CIA was behind that. Our government helps support radical Islamic terrorism and radical Islamic ideology in places like Saudi Arabia. We need them because of the petrodollar. But to say that this is a wholly Western ideology, you can read the Quran yourself. You can read the Hadiths yourself. And there have always been people who took them seriously. Did you know that our founding fathers had to deal with the Barbary pirates? And they would stop American ships. And Americans were like, what is going on here? And the captain of the ship said, well, our book, our prophet commands us to subdue the infidels, and you are infidels. So guess what? Jefferson, John Adams, they got themselves a copy of the Quran. They got it translated into English. And then you know what they said? They wanted every American to read it because there was a 5-year war to try to keep these Islamists at bay and out of America back in the late 1700s, early 1800s, okay? So it's been around for a little while. It is an ideology that has something to do with Western interventionism, but a lot to do with what's written in that book. It's more to do with what's written in that book. Okay? Faux real. All right. So, we don't, we do know his motive. All right. And I think that the story of the Italian restaurant owner is so sad. So incredibly sad. And I hate to move on from there, but there's a lot of good things going on in Europe. So Salvini, Le Pen are surging. Viktor Orban is surging, and it has the European Union really, really, really scared. Really scared. And this guy right here, Matteo Salvini, is on fire. When Trump, after our midterm elections, I'm not sure he understood exactly how it went, but because Trump was positive, then Matteo Salvini tweets out, "Go Trump." So funny. There's a populist type coalition, which is incredibly interesting because you had Macaroni come out and say that he's a patriot, but he's not a nationalist, and he stood in front of our president and said that nationalism was evil and led to these wars. So I gotta tell you what the globalists are pushing is actual wars. The globalists want wars. Salvini, I guarantee you, wants his country to be safe. He has no plans of becoming a Mussolini, finding a Hitler, and going all over Europe, subduing countries. Okay? Nationalism actually pulls back from world domination. Nationalism says we are going to concentrate on our country, meaning we're not going to go into other countries. We're not going to go make inlands into other countries. Macron, and he is the mouthpiece for the globalist agenda, and he's becoming less popular. Trump is actually becoming more popular in France, and Macron is becoming less popular. How do you think that's working out? But Rome is readying for protests against Salvini, against racism, and I am not one to shy away from the fact that racism exists, especially when you have a group of people that are a certain color coming in, shooting people, stabbing people, raping people. Okay? Now, normal, wonderful Christian people need to say and need to rise up and say this is not because of color of their skin, but what the left will use against you is hatred, is anger. You can't get angry. You can get angry, but don't hate. Don't hate people because of the color of skin. Don't hate them because of where they, the country of their origin. But you can be, we say, don't be Islamophobic or migrant phobic, but you can be cautious. Okay, when I drive downtown, I'm not afraid of black people. I love black people, but there are certain areas where there might be some poor white people, there might be some poor black people, the buildings might be falling down, I might hear some gunshots in the distance, and I am going to be cautious. And that's what I'm talking about. The U.S. State Department has warned Americans abroad of demonstrations against the populist Italian government to be held in Rome on Saturday in protest of the recent legislation aimed at reining in illegal immigration. And they're trying to put Matteo Salvini with racism, just like they're trying to do that with Trump, just like they're trying to do that with Le Pen, just like they're trying to do that with Viktor Orban. And you do have an element of racists. And they're bad people. Okay? They have it within them to hate. And so they're just angry at anything. So you hear this, they're just angry. You hear this, they're just angry. But that's their main weapon to try to shut you down. To say, hey, you know what? The grooming gangs in Pakistan, the grooming gangs in the UK are all Pakistani. What's going on there? I need to know. All right? Doesn't mean that I'm going to go and hate all Pakistanis, but I'm going to be Pakistani cautious. You want to know why else I'm going to be Pakistani cautious? Because Asia Bibi was a Christian in Pakistan who was thirsty on a really hot day, who was a poor worker. And she drank out of the same cup of Muslims. And you know what? She got the death penalty. Now, she's been recently acquitted of the death penalty. But guess who won't give her asylum right now because they're afraid of what might happen, of violence that might happen. The UK has refused to give Asia Bibi asylum. Because they're afraid that it might cause a security concern. Now, why would it cause why would it cause a beautiful, wonderful Christian woman to come into the UK? What would be the main security concern? Well, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to show you what the main security concern would be. Okay? Pakistan won't confront violent moms who wreak destruction and incite murder over the acquittal of the Christian woman Asia Bibi after her 9 years on death row for blasphemy. She must flee the country now or they'll kill her, but Pakistan won't let her go. Why is Pakistan on the UN Human Rights Commission? This is Pakistan. Now, I'm going to tell you something. This is a large demonstration of Pakistanis. And they're all calling for her death. Thousands take the streets in Pakistan's Karachi to protest Asia Bibi's acquittal. Bibi, a Pakistani Christian woman who spent 8 years on death row, has been freed from jail amid appeals for her. She's been trying to get asylum places. I believe that Italy has offered her asylum, and I think they're trying to get asylum in the Netherlands next. Blasphemer Asia has been freed. The People's Court gave its verdict against her. Pakistan's People's Court has turned down the Supreme Court's verdict. Do you think that these people, when they come into the UK or come to different countries, that they care to follow your laws? I'm Pakistani cautious, baby. I'm Pakistani cautious. I want to know where you stand. We have heard Asia has been freed and efforts are underway to send her abroad. The entire nation of Pakistan is riled up against this decision. I'm Pakistani cautious. Raise your hand if you're going to be Pakistani cautious too. You know? Not exactly awesome to me. Hey guys. Why do you care about what happens in Pakistan? Aren't there enough problems in the United States? Well, guess what? This is our UK and Euro news segment. And so we cover what's going on in Europe. Because guess what? If you stay in your little bubble, I care. I care what's going on. And guess what? I'm a Christian. So Asia Bibi is my sister in Christ. And I care what happens to her. I really do. And you know why else I care about what's happening in Pakistan? Because of the grooming gangs. If you're not aware, thousands and thousands and thousands of girls in the UK have been raped. Some of them murdered. Some of them maimed. Some of them chopped up, ground up, and put in kebabs and fed to people in the UK. And you know what? I believe the number is 89% of these gangs of men who groom these young girls and buy them things and buy them food, and then they make them sex slaves, make them enforce them and beat them and make them sleep with all kinds of grody, old, dirty, crazy people. And 89% of them come from Pakistan. And so I care about my brothers and sisters in the UK. And I care about those young girls, and I care about what happened to them. There are certain things that you may care about. Start your YouTube show and start telling people about it. That's what I care about right now. I also care that I think that this whole country should be on a terror watch list, and they should be on Trump's travel ban. Raise your hand if you know I'm right. Asa Bibi is looking for asylum in the Netherlands. They voted on that, or they're voting on that, but I guess you have to be in the country in order to seek asylum. So we'll see how that goes. Tommy Robinson has been. We showed you last week how he's been raising money for like a little girl in the wheelchair and different veterans and veteran families with disabilities. PayPal shut him down. I'm not even kidding you. Everybody says, start your own website, mate. Start your own, now they want us to start, how can I come up? I'm not a bank. I can't start my own payment processor. Come on, guys. This is fascism. He started raising money for people and PayPal pulled him. And they did it to Alex Jones. I mean, PayPal connected to Google, right? So we know that Google has been censoring us. Google is far, far, far left, almost communist. Citizen journalist and activist Tommy Robinson has branded PayPal's decision to stop processing his payments as fascism, saying the company is trying to silence him. PayPal confirmed it has stopped handling payments. Why do they always call him the founder and the former member of the English Defense League? He has distanced himself from racists, and that's what you have to do. I get it. Saying you can't fight hate with hate. Okay? And that's what happens. He is fighting hatred of Islamic extremism, and you can't fight hate with hate. So yeah, I would distance myself from people who peddle hate too as well. Saying that while it could not comment on the individual account holders, it says it regularly reviews accounts, checks that they are abiding by their acceptable use policy. Now, he's not processing payments for prostitution, drug running, gun sales. Come on. Now it's for political views on stating that Islam is Islamic terrorism. Striking the necessary balance between upholding free expression and open dialogue and protecting principles of tolerance, diversity, and respect for all people is a challenge that many companies have been grappling with today. We work hard to achieve the right balance and to ensure that all decisions are values-driven and not political. Liar, liar, pants on fire. In response to the ban, Mr. Robinson said, they just don't like my opinion and want to silence me. The government and establishment can see I have public support, that they can see that I have the ability to fight back. He also claimed that PayPal has frozen a lot of money for 180 days. PayPal they have access to bank accounts. They have access to credit card information. They can't just randomly choose to freeze. You can say, listen, I'm going to end my relationship with you. We're going to end our relationship, but here's your money. Now take it and go. Or they have to write a check and send it to him. But to freeze his assets like this is illegal. This is crazy. The tech giant had blocked InfoWars in the past in alleged off-record comments because of its criticism of Islam and the opposition of transgenderism being taught to children in schools. That's right, folks. PayPal dropped Alex Jones because he talked about transgenders being and drag queens coming in and reading stories to children. Absolutely insane. The censorship is real, y'all. That's why we're here today, praying that we don't get more censored. We're obviously in the bottom of basement of YouTube jail, but we're out here, and I'm glad that we are, and we'll keep speaking out as long as we have the ability to speak out, and we will speak out for people like Tommy Robinson. Local Labour talking about the grooming gangs. Local Labour is accused of trying to dilute scrutiny of grooming gangs inquiry. There's a lot of people that have this skin tone and coloring, but these are predominantly Pakistani people. Okay? The Conservative Party councillors in Kirklees have accused their Labour colleagues of attempting to dilute the terms of an inquiry into the Huddersfield grooming gang after 20 mostly Pakistani Muslim men were jailed for the historic abuse of 15 vulnerable girls. Tory councillors called for an independent inquiry following the grooming gang scandal at Huddersfield Town Hall Wednesday night over concerns that the chairman of the proposed review, Dr. Mark Peel of the Leeds Children's Safeguarding Partnership, was too close to affiliated organisations that may be under scrutiny and cannot be regarded as impartial. It is time Kirklees Council and West Yorkshire Police recognise their responsibility to the victims and to the parents. A lot of the victims have said the police didn't care about us. The police didn't care about us. What does that say? However, a Labour amendment to the motion removed reference to Kirklees Council, and the left-wing dominated council voted to call on the Home Secretary for an inquiry to examine the role of the public bodies and the statutory agencies charged with protecting children and apprehending and convicting criminals nationally instead. They said it dilutes the attention on this council, on the police and other partner agencies in this borough. There have been major problems, and I don't think anyone would disagree with that. I would suggest, been major failings within this borough. Let's not dilute things and look at the whole of England and Wales. Let's look at Kirklees. Tory group leader David Hall, who proposed the initial motion, warned that the local authorities should not be trying to obfuscate or to cover up what we're trying to do by introducing a lot of other stuff. It was simple to begin with. So Labour parties, they kicked out one of their own for calling out and saying, hey, these are Pakistani men. Can we talk about this? Like, you just did not, racist. Facts and your feelings may not line up. You must always go with the facts. Let's see. Here we go. Moving on. Talking about the UK, talking about one of immigration and different, the rise of Islamic extremism in the UK being one of the major topics or reasons behind Brexit. Tony Blair says that he will do everything he can to stop Brexit. He is a former Prime Minister in Labour Party. Tony Blair has reiterated his commitment to reverse the British people's vote for Brexit 2016. He says, I am 100% opposed to Brexit, he declared the Iraq War architect. Up to the very end, I'm going to do everything I can to stop it. I think it is possible to stop it because it's not in our economic interest. It's not in our political interest. And I think it weakens Britain and it weakens Europe. It does not weaken Britain. It does not weaken Europe. What it can do is make Britain thrive. When giving more power back to the hands of the people always makes people thrive. Blair says he still feels like he's God and he can tell you all what to do. Now, what do you think of that? Farage warns British political class colluding with Euro politicians against democracy after an email leak. Brexit campaign leader, our favourite Nigel Farage, has warned that the British political class are colluding with their European counterparts to thwart Brexit after an email leak. The LBC host and former UKIP chief is still a working member of the European Parliament and was able to reveal an email from colleague Alan Smith of the anti-Brexit left-wing Scottish National SNP sent to every politician in the 751-strong European Parliament, urging them to help EU loyalists in Britain delay and ultimately defeat Brexit. She says, despite our political differences, as UK MEPs, we are united around one fact. If you wish to allow the UK to remain within our EU family, then always do so will necessitate an extension of the Article 50 timetable. She says, Whilst we acknowledge that many details in the next few months remain unclear, it is in a spirit of friendship, solidarity, and respect that we ask you, our European friends, to start thinking about this possibility and be ready for its inevitability. The activation of Article 50, the EU-mandated mechanism for leaving the bloc, set in train a 2-year negotiating period before Britain's exit and cannot be extended without an agreement between the British and the EU institution. Farage further revealed that Hans-Olaf Henkeil, an influential German MEP and former head of the Federation of German Industry, had taken up Smyth's call enthusiastically. I wonder why. Replying, I support everything which would avoid a Brexit, including anything which could delay it. Kind of like putting sticks and rocks in front of your bicycle so you trip and fall. Let me advise you that I have talked to both the European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker, drunk Juncker, and to the Australian Chancellor Sebastian Kurz about our initiative. Undermining the people's vote in Britain. Go figure. Now, if you think for one moment that they care about what you think, that somehow being a part of the larger body in the EU will give you a better voice, that they have your best interest in hearts, that they care about you, they don't. They don't. It's about power and control, and it's about a handful of unelected bureaucrats at the top who think that they are your parents. And they can tell you what to do. They can tell you what size your candy bars should be. They already do that in Britain. Do you need another bigger nanny state? How much sugar can be in your chocolate candies? Crazy. Denouncing the plot in a column for the Telegraph, Farage declared that Smith and the 13 British MEPs who showed utter contempt for their own people in signing his letter are conspiring with the Germans to make sure Britain cannot become competitive after Brexit. I think their intention is to derail Article 50. I call that a collusion against democracy, and I believe they should all hang their heads in shame. For shame. For shame. So it sounds like we have somebody in the chat who's here for an education. So I love it. I swear Michelle's more handy than some of my friends' husbands. Not mine, but my friends on the left. Michelle is quite handy, by the way. It's okay. EU is collapsing. Hold on, UK. I love it. That is some positivity there. Hang on, UK. Hang on, baby. Hang on. Brexiteers, Boris Johnson and Farage top the polls for most liked politician and public figure. This was fun to me. After backing the Brexit campaign and stepping down from the cabinet in protest of Theresa May's soft exit plan, Boris Johnson has emerged as the UK's most popular politician according to new polling. Former UKIP leader and MEP Nigel Farage, meanwhile, is more popular than the former Tory Prime Minister David Cameron and the most popular other public figure not associated with one of the two major parties. Mr. Farage, who enjoyed broad recognition, was also more popular than Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon, Liberal Democrat leader Vince Cable, and former Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg. According to the YouGov research, Mr. Johnson tops out a list of main party politicians by popularity with a positive rating of 32% and approval ratings 3 points ahead of Ms. May. Those with the highest recognition ratings were Mr. Johnson, the Prime Minister, and the Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn, coming in at 97%, 100%, and 98% respectively. I just found that funny. Farage is my favorite. He really is. So we have this rise of populism that's happening. Matteo Salvini, which we're going to get to. Viktor Orban. Slovenia is shoring up their borders. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But Le Pen's in for kind of a last laugh because she came in behind Macron in the election. I think we all were a little disappointed, but it's not over. We started to come to you guys in 2017, and we covered, Geert Wilders in the Netherlands and his election, and Le Pen. Economist Magazine had them on the rise up. Had Geert Wilders on the rise up, and they've kind of been working behind the scenes to make things happen. Marine Le Pen mocks Macron in panic over impending beating in the EU election. Now, I'm not over there in Europe. I don't know what's going on. I know that, Bannon has some people on the ground and try to get the news out there, try to get their names out there, try to get local people elected, try to find people who align with the populist agenda, maybe a more conservative agenda, the France First agenda. Emmanuel Macron is in a panic over next year's EU Parliament elections, Marine Le Pen has said, after the president issued an urgent warning against voting for populists. Macron is just shaking in his little boy boots. If you don't know much about Mr. Macron, he isn't, I think he might even be my age. I don't know, he's a little older than me, but he married his teacher. He's not, in my opinion, he's not mentally stable, right? Because his teacher was in her 30s and he was like 15 and she fell in love with him. And they married later. She had 3 kids. Her daughter was in the same like class as Macron. It's one of the dirtiest, yuckiest, like, it's not a marriage, you guys. It's like, to me, it looks like incest, like a mom and a son. It's really weird. There's rumors that he's like gay on the side. I wouldn't be surprised. You know, he's just a puppet. And he's shown that from the time he was a little kid, it's kind of like, this older woman came in and became his handler, and he's being handled. His voice, what comes out of him, he's a little puppet, and I feel bad for him. I really do. But he's like, and I think people can see it because it's a child molester. You're not allowed to be against child molesters anymore, I guess, in this world. She's a child molester. Yay! Yeah. So gross. So Le Pen has said Macron is in a panic over Macron's in a panic over the EU Parliament elections happening in the spring, after the president issued an urgent warning against voting for populists. The globalist French leader's comments in an interview with Europe 1 Tuesday morning, when he likened anti-mass migration conservative movements in the EU countries in the 1930s National Socialism, were utterly corny, according to Le Pen. Noting Macron's remarks, remember, Le Pen has already been like, they wanted to send her off to psychological evaluation for the tweet that she made a few years back, saying this is Daesh, this is ISIS, with a beheading. Somehow she's not mentally stable because she calls out Islamic terrorism. No. I think Macron needs to go see a psychiatrist for him, marrying this child molester. Noting Macron's remarks were nothing new to in French political discourse, the RN, Rassemblement National, I wish it was easier to roll off the tongue there, leader said, I have the impression that all my life I have been hearing Europe is peace, nation states are war. During the interview, Macron stressed his hope that parties within the Republican range will prevail in the upcoming European elections, which he has previously declared will serve as a battleground between his vision of a globalist EU superstate. His vision. How is he get to come up as some sort of like young hotshot and run the EU? How does he have some sort of globalist vision? That's because the EU leadership is using him, and they're trying to have like a pretty face, which I don't really think he has one, but they're trying to put a young face out there to say, hey, see, follow him, but it's really us, old hags in the back, pulling strings. His vision. Who made you dictator? Who died and made you king, Macron? Your vision for a globalist EU. Who made you president? Who made you king? Who made you czar? Who made you Caesar? Nobody made you anybody but a president of one country. And they're probably really upset that they did. He says that his vision of a globalist EU superstate centered around human rights and that of conservative pro-sovereignty leaders opposed to mass immigration from the third world. Nationalism is not within that range, he insisted to Europe journalists. Did we forget which party won the European elections in France? He's like slamming down his hand, like, I'm in charge. I won. I call him Baby Macron. I won. Did we forget who won? I won. Denouncing Macron's decision to scare voters by raising the specter of the 1930s as totally irresponsible. RN Secretary General Nicolas Bay said the French government was alone, aside from the Spanish administration, in defending a model of mass migration. All by yourself, baby. All by yourself. Taken alongside an advertisement launched by the government last week urging citizens to vote in May's EU elections, which was slammed by the opposition in large parts of France's political class for its alarmist tone, Le Pen said the president's comments provided proof that there is a real panic of power in the face of election, where he knows will most likely result in a drubbing for him. The RN and the LREM, Macron's La République en Marche, are currently almost neck and neck with regards to voting intentions for next year's European elections, according to this poll released Sunday that showed Le Pen's Populist Party edged ahead of the globalist self-styled center bloc. And I don't know if you guys, let's see, in a piece describing Le Pen as the Donald Trump of France, Vanity Fair said the figures revealed that the battle for the French Republic, torn between nativism and globalism, is trending decidedly in Le Pen's favor. So sometimes you got to give it a breather. Sometimes you got to give it a break. And sometimes it takes a little while. But we're on, like, the wave is going in this direction. What does this mean? What is this direction? Away from globalism. And I always have to take it back, because if we just randomly put the facts out there, we randomly put people out there, and we say, hey, follow Le Pen, hey, follow Viktor Orban, hey, follow Salvini. No. We're not propping up people. We're not telling you to go follow this person or go follow this person. I have to take you back to America in 1913. When they propped up, they split the Republican vote on purpose. The big bankers did, and they put in their patsy, and his name was Woodrow Wilson. And what Woodrow Wilson did on Christmas Eve of 1913 set, I believe, all these wars in motion, all the evil that has happened in the past 100 years, even the rise, I blame the rise of communism on that evening in 1913. What did he do? He created a Federal Reserve. When you take people off of this gold standard and you begin to recklessly print as much money and craziness counterfeit as you want, that is what actually funds the wars. Okay? Without the printing of the fake monies, you don't have the ability to do all these crazy things. And American investors, American businesses like Standard Oil, okay? Rockefeller, have you guys heard of J.D. Rockefeller? Rockefeller Standard Oil put all the other oil people out of business. He was so incredibly evil, but everybody else, he was later was broken up. Standard Oil was broken up. But he helped Hitler, and he helped I.G. Farben in World War II. And without a lot of American bankers and a lot of American investors, you don't have these wars happening. And where are they getting their fake dollars? The invention of the Federal Reserve. So you have a lot of craziness going on. I'm not blaming everything in the entire world on it, but the mass 100 years of destruction you can go back to that moment. You can go back to the rise of eugenics, the idea of supremacy, the idea of Margaret Sanger coming and saying black people should be killed. We don't want to let it out that we want all black people exterminated. The same ideas with Hitler says, "Oh, I love what Margaret Sanger is doing, and she loves what Hitler's doing." And you have these eugenics all across. Eugenics was kind of birthed here in the United States, and Hitler kind of just ran with it. The same thing happening in the mid 1900s with the rise of Darwinism and Darwinism being taught in schools and the descent of man, when that book is decidedly racist and actually led to, I believe, the extermination of people, because it said that white people were up here and the different races are down here. And what we're trying to bring back, which is actually the exact opposite of the Darwinian totalitarian supremacist eugenics attitude. We want to make sure that every person is valued and every life is valued, and that every person exists in a way that is humane and brings out the best of each person. But you also have to realize that there are borders for a reason. And you have to make sure the people that come into your home and the people come into your country will be safe. All right. So, the EU is really, really afraid of this. And I have an article here. I believe I have my article here. Where's the one? I had an article that said, somebody big in the EU said, oh my gosh, there's a Nigel Farage in every European country. And I bet I'm going to find that in a minute. There's a Nigel Farage in every country. Where's my video? Or my story? Okay. It's not gonna be here. All right, so moving on. Let's see. Italy. This is what I told you about. Go, Donald, go. Italy's Salvini congratulates Trump's on the midterms. Italian Interior Minister Matteo Salvini tweeted out felicitations to President Donald Trump Wednesday, congratulating him for the results of the U.S. midterm elections. Congratulations to President Trump for the seats taken in the Senate and for the confirmation in the crucial states. Against everything and everyone, lefty journalists, actors, singers, directors, pseudo-intellectuals. Go, Donald, go. I want to frame that and I want to put it on my wall. He knows what's going on, guys. Here's the thing. When they say that the rise of nationalism is going to lead to some sort of crazy World War II, no, look at this. This is seriously, you have Trump saying, go Poland. I'm really happy for you and your Independence Day. You have Salvini saying, go Trump, go. We realize that it's the lefty journalists and the actors and the singers and the directors and all these people trying to be against you. We know that it's not a true. I love it. I'm so excited to see. I want Poland to be great again. That's what Make America Great Again is all about. Make Mexico great again. Make Brazil great again. But then maybe there's some hope for Venezuela. Make Venezuela great again, right? Make France great again. Make the UK great again, right? And they're trying to make the UK great again with Brexit. Slovenia, who do we know? Who's our famous first lady from Slovenia? Melania Trump. Never paid too much attention to Slovenia before, did we? But Slovenia is a small country, and it too has decided that it's going to protect its borders. Slovenia to arm border guards as migrants attempt to break through the Balkans. The Slovenian government has taken new measures to increase border security as an estimated 20,000 migrants attempt to break out of the Balkans into Central Europe. The Slovenian government has further fortified their border with Croatia, issuing police officers with firearms to control the flow of migrants trying to get through both Croatia and then Slovenia to Western Europe. The Slovenian operations on the Croatian border have not been without controversy, especially after Slovenian media filmed police forcing migrants, including some women and children, back into Croatia at gunpoint. So we're celebrating the end of a 100 years after the end of the war. And people are trying to come illegally into a country. Isn't that an invasion? I don't know. The action comes as part of a joint cooperation between the two countries, which has seen 635 missions featuring mixed forces from two countries, half of which occurred on the Slovenian territory and half in Croatia. So they're working hard, obviously, to shore up their border. Earlier this week, Austrian intelligence warned that up to 20,000 migrants were looking to cross the Bosnian-Croatian border in the very near future, with a source saying 95% of these migrants who are trying to break through are young men, almost all of whom are armed with knives. A border policeman has already been stabbed. So they're armed with knives. They're trying to break in. How is this not an invasion? How can you not protect your border? I don't understand. The majority come from Pakistan, but there are also Iranians, Algerians, and Moroccans. I am Pakistani cautious. Let me tell you what, baby. I gotta tell you what. Italy steps up to offer refugee to Pakistani Christian woman. I wanted to let you guys know that it's pretty cool that Matteo Salvini is also on Twitter. He knows what's going on, and they have offered her refuge, and I hope that I hope she finds somewhere to go. Hungary begins their national family consultation to combat population replacement. And we talk about this pretty much every week, but every week, Italy last week, what did they do? Third child. If you have a third child in the next few years, then you're gonna have free land, and you can get a loan up to £200,000 to buy a house. They want to make Italy great again. The Hungarian government began a new national survey this week to tackle the problem of the country's declining population without resorting to a policy of mass migration. The new national survey, which bears the title of Defense of Families, contains 10 questions sent to around 8 million different households across the country and looks to see what Hungarians think of Prime Minister Viktor Orban's pro-family policies. State Secretary Caitlin Novik commented on the launch of the survey saying, "Europe is the continent of empty cradles. There aren't enough children." In spite of the significant mass migration towards Europe, Hungary wants to rely on its internal resources. She said, "We see the future of Hungarian children. Hungary doesn't want immigration or population replacement." And what you saw with immigrants coming over to America, and we're going to celebrate the Pilgrims, and I think Michelle might show you her great new present later on, talking about the Pilgrims coming over here. They came as families. Immigrants who come as families, like I have a dear friend whose grandparents are Italian, and they came over to America from Italy. They love America. They became part of America, and they immigrated with their families. Her grandfather started an auto mechanics shop, and he became American. We're not seeing that kind of immigration, are we, guys? We're not seeing families come and start businesses like the Italian who went to Australia, who was recently killed in that terror attack. Sorry if we're having construction going on, if you can hear that. So I think this is fantastic. Make Europe great again. I think God is big into families, and I think that with a lot of communism, with socialism, you kind of tend to rein in the families, especially when you get away from God and the purpose of marriage and family, and the idea that God wants you to be married and be fruitful and have children, and that children are a major blessing. Under communism, children are not a blessing. Under socialism, children are not seen as a blessing. So remember that I told you last week, even the number of abortion has fallen by 1/3. Even without the Hungarian government introducing any policies to restrict access to them. So just encouraging life, encouraging children being born. Abortions have gone down. It's really exciting. So we'll see what's happening. In September, Salvini made his case clear, saying, "I believe that I'm in the government in order to see that our young people have the number of children that they used to have a few years ago, and not transplant the best of Africa's youth to Europe." I love it. I love it. So in Sweden, they're still without a government. They had these elections, and we were all kind of hoping that the populists would take over, but they didn't. And I think I want to get these different parties right, but it looks like they might make a coalition with the populists here. The migrant crisis hit Sweden remains without a working. The migrant crisis hit Sweden, so I don't know exactly why they started a sentence like that. Can you even hear me? I'm really sorry. They don't have a government. They haven't had a government since the September election. Left the formerly ruling Social Democrats unable to form a coalition, and a growing number of voters are now calling for their own parties to consider working with the populist Swedish Democrats to save the country from a snap general election. Moderate and center-right voters in Sweden increasingly see working with the Sweden Democrats as a workable means to give Sweden a government and to influence how the country is run in the future. In a newly released poll, voters of both the moderates and the Christian Democrats agree that the party should look towards some kind of talks with the populists. According to the poll conducted by Novus for Sweden's broadcaster, 85% of moderate voters and 83% of Christian Democratic voters held a favorable view of working with the Social Democrats. Political scientist Jenny Magstam commented on the results, saying, if you ask the voter on the street, they think it is the obvious solution to sit in a government and to hold talks with the Swedish Democrats. This does not appear among the party leadership because they have so many different considerations to take. I mean, that's absolutely true. So we'll see what happens there in Sweden. They need a government. They might have some snap elections. Time to get tough. Farage blasts Khan after London scrambles extra police after fifth person slain in days. London is having they have horrible acid attacks, horrible knife attacks. And London police have launched their fifth murder investigation. We're going down the wall here, putting in the header. Got to go into the stud. I guess it's going into the house, into the studs. London police have launched their fifth murder investigation in a week after a 16-year-old boy died in a suspected stabbing, and extra officers were taken off leave and deployed on the streets. Police were called to reports of a shooting in Tulse Hill, South London on Monday night, with the youth pronounced dead just before midnight. Officers said it's believed the boy's injuries are stab rather than gunshot wounds. Earlier in the day, a 17-year-old and 18-year-old were arrested on suspicion of murder following the killing of Malcolm Madriola, also 17. What is going on? Hours before on Friday, a 15-year-old boy was killed just yards from his home. This is all gang-related violence. Following the wave of violence, Sky News reports that hundreds of extra police officers, many of whom will have to be taken off leave, will be on the beat to protect the public. So, Nigel Farage wants to bring back the stop and search. And I have really mixed feelings about this because I want to carry a knife to protect myself from people who might be carrying a knife. So what these laws do is they literally make you impotent and unable to defend yourself. Because the criminals are going to find a way to have weapons, right? You're always going to be able to find a place to put a knife if you're a criminal. But good people are going to say, well, I better not carry anything for my protection because then I might get in trouble. It's absolutely crazy. The brainwashing starts in schools. It's what's happening in our schools. It's what's happening in schools all over Europe. You've got in Scotland, they're demanding that transgenderism and all different kinds of lifestyles are being, that was in the news today, being taught to young children. And there's controversy in Italian school textbooks revealed to promote only pro-mass migration views. The media investigators have found, and what I want to point out here is that the media in Italy is pretty. It's not all left wing. I've seen the media point these things out, and go into some of these migrant areas. One female journalist was on air, and she was like being attacked, and it was pretty crazy. So I'm glad that the media in Italy is actually investigating this. They found that Italian school textbooks have a totally pro-mass migration slant, which has been deemed migratory propaganda. The migration crisis has been a focal point in the Italian politics. We know about this. And an investigation by Italian media shows that while voters are largely rejecting mass migration, Italian middle and high school pupils are only being taught about it from a positive point of view. The textbook, The Eye of History, an integrated course in history and geography, is one such pro-mass migration book that contains various exercises for high school students, including one that states, today, schools must favor the integration of the children of immigrants and therefore the creation of a multi-ethnic and multicultural society. The text also argues that mass migration of working-age migrants into Italy is needed to keep the Italian pension system afloat, and refers positively to the barbarian invasions and the mass migration into the Western Roman Empire as a benefit, saying, this migratory phenomenon has contributed to the construction of the Roman barbarian world that is at the foundation of our Europe, the same Europe that today feels frightened and threatened from the arrival of masses of migrants and refugees. The books for middle schools are largely the same, according to another report, which tells students that Italian society must head into a multi-ethnic, multicultural society and multi-religious future, while those who disagree are labeled as advocates of a racist, xenophobic, and intolerant culture. The books follow other politically correct moves in Italy, including a recently released guide for journalists, which encourages them not to use terms like illegal immigrant. The guide also called on journalists to stigmatize those with anti-mass migration views. Despite the attempts to demonize anti-mass migration viewpoints, populist Interior Minister Matteo Salvini still remains the most popular politician in the country, with an approval rating of nearly 50%. And I do have for you, I think I do. Did I just tweet it out? I have a video. And that's what I'm going to show you guys later. Matteo Salvini is very popular. This is a video of Matteo Salvini with kids, and he's like a rock star now. These are young kids. They love him. They love this guy. So when you see him being greeted like this, like Donald Trump is at the rallies, and then you see the other side hating so much, like the divide, at least we can see who's on each side. And I'm not saying that everybody who supports Salvini is a great person, okay? I'm not saying that every person that supports Donald Trump is a good person. Now, here's Michelle. There was a little bit of noise going on. What was that all about? Want to tell us?
Wait, I don't know. My eye just started twitching.
Buzz. I figured you were attaching.
We are attaching the ledger board with 1/2 inch.
She's cold.
By 6 inch galvanized leg bolts that I have to go and buy some more of.
Oh dear.
At the store.
Okay.
So, I thought since I was popping in to get my purse, I would pop in and say hello with my rosy cheeks.
Your rosy cheeks.
How's the show? What were we talking about?
I don't know. I was talking about Matteo Salvini being popular in Italy. Yeah, the babies. They love him. They loved him. They loved him. They really do. They really do. So what I think that's kind of the news that I have for covering Italy. But let me give you a sneak peek about what we're going to cover later on when we can get Michelle back. Here's a video. This beach marks the Remembrance Day here, and they put the sand.
He didn't return, and he was killed actually 7 days before.
And they put faces to the people, and it's just beautiful.
Of his death on.
So I'm really excited, you guys, to come to you.
So it's wonderful to put an
image
of him here on this beach again.
So
and we're trying
cool.
to find connections in each of the beaches. We've done this at 32 beaches around the country, well, about 30. And we're trying to find connections, stories like that bring it home, that you can talk about to friends. Today, there's a lot of divisions and polarity around the world. And in many ways, people are warning that we are slowly moving back towards war. There are a lot of loud people out there who are making a lot of noise like that. And it's wonderful to be able to think about someone who lived through the reality of a war and wrote so extraordinarily about it and gave that information to us as a blessing, as a warning, really.
So I'm really excited about that. Donald Trump has says the bond between America and Poland has never been stronger. Is stronger than ever, thanks to Trump, say ambassadors. Polish ambassador to the U.S., the U.S. ambassador to Poland have penned a joint article hailing the excellent ties which have developed under President Trump as the Central European country marks 100 years of independence. So I'm really excited to bring you guys that. I hope that you will come back to me. Are you guys drilling those holes? Yeah, they were definitely drilling those holes. Conservative trans woman Blair White got a drink thrown in her for wearing a Make America Great hat. It's pretty crazy. That's what the problem is. That's what the problem is with a lot of the youth here in the States. They've been programmed for such a long time, it's hard to deprogram them. And that's true. That's really true. The soldiers lying in Flanders Field are rolling over in their graves, seeing what's happening in the UK and other Western countries. What did those... This is a really good point here. This is from Dale Jones. What did those World War I veterans die for? If their countries are being I think maybe overrun, and their descendants becoming minorities in their own countries. It's kind of ironic, isn't it? Kind of ironic. A lot of irony there. Tommy Robinson got in a fight in Australia? Is that true? Respect to all Americans who remember the First World War. God bless you, brave people of God. Amen. I love that. Thank you, Colin. God bless you guys. So I wanted to go through some of the comments here, see if I got some on Facebook Live. Good afternoon to all of you. I'm so glad that you guys could join me. I am going to, I know it's a shorter show this afternoon, covering all this news, covering Marine Le Pen's rise, Matteo Salvini's rise. I really wanted to bring you up the article. I want to try to before I leave. I think I'm going to try to Breitbart London here, because what is it all about? It's fun to see the Eurocrats kind of a little bit scared and worried that there might be a EU loyalist MPs sees as Cormann tells Germans we can't stop Brexit. That's a brand new article here. EU loyalist politicians have been left seething after Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn told the German press it was too late to stop Brexit. Speaking to the Der Spiegel, the aging socialist answered in the negative when his interviewer asked if you could stop Brexit, would you? He says, give Jeremy Corbyn a little credit here, you guys. He says we can't stop it. The referendum took place. Article 50 has been triggered. What we can do is recognize the reasons why people voted leave, he said, adding that a lot of people have been totally angered by the way in which their communities have been left behind. Corbyn campaigned for a Remain vote during the 2016 referendum. But you gotta hand him credit, right? Corbyn's respect for the original referendum result and refusal to back this George Soros finance campaign to litigate it with so-called the People's Vote left EU loyalists in his party seething. It's time for all of us in the Labour Party to make a full-throated case for a People's Vote with the option of remaining in the European Union, insisted West Streeting MP. That leadership may come from the top, but Jeremy Corbyn says the vote has been had. Very interesting. I wanted to find the article where they were worried. They were worried. There was a topless chick that got in front of Trump's motorcade today in France. I think it might be. It says there's a Nigel Farage in every country. I hope I didn't pass it up. There's a Nigel Farage in every country. There it is. There it is. The European Union is facing an existential crisis as there is now a populist Eurosceptic Nigel Farage-type figure in every country, says Michael Barnier. The Frenchman told delegates of the European People's Party group conference in Helsinki on Thursday that the European project is under threat from the forces of populism, and the bloc must band together ahead of May's 2019 European Parliament elections to defeat it. Together, united, we will win this election. It is by fighting together that we will gain the trust of our fellow Europeans, because this election will be tougher than ever before, he says. We have to fight against those who want to demolish Europe with their fear, their populist defeat, their attacks against the European project. There is now a Farage in every country, The Telegraph said that Nigel Farage responded with undisguised glee that the leading Brexiteers' threat of influence amongst populist circles weighed so heavily on the Eurocrat, saying, "I thank Mr. Barnier for the compliment." The Frenchman's fears of a collapse of the globalist bloc manifested earlier in the week on Monday when he revealed that Mr. Farage had warned him once the UK leaves, the EU will fall apart. "I told him," Mr. Barnier said, "if you leave Brexit, you won, and now we are delivering Brexit. You led Brexit. You won, and now we are delivering Brexit. Can I ask you how you see the relationship between the UK and the EU after Brexit?" And he said this, "Mr. Barnier, after Brexit, the EU will no longer exist. We cannot allow Mr. Farage to be right." Analysis of the by Rodgers over the summer projected that there will be a populist surge at the European Parliament elections, with Eurosceptic parties expanding their strength by over 60%. So aware of the threat of the European voting in record numbers against greater surrender of power to Brussels, that European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker said in June that the establishment must unite to stop rampant populism before then. How do you stop it? These are people who get up every day, who see what's happening. They're going out from their front porch and they're seeing Paris overrun with migrants. What have you done? That's on top of the constant financial market manipulation. Farmers in France committing suicide because of the manipulation in the EU, telling farmers what they can grow, what they can't grow, manipulating markets. So it's nice to see them a little scared in their boots. So scared that the UK is rounding people up. Germany's rounding people up, fining people, putting them in jail for what they say online, while criminals stab, beat, rape, craziness goes on. And most of those people are just upset at the stabbing and the raping and the crime and the knife crimes. And they go on Twitter and they rant, or they go on Facebook and they're upset. And instead of getting the people together and saying, "Listen, I know you're upset. I'm going to talk to you about what I'm going to do about it," they just say, "Well, you're a racist." Well, that doesn't help people. It doesn't help anybody. I believe the answer is Jesus. I think we all need love and the power of God. If you're going to destroy the violence, you're going to destroy the violence of the EU, you have to have the power of God. You have to have the love of God. You have to have the power of Jesus Christ. And I really think we're going to hit on a lot of that. Love and a lot. There were so many good people who fought in World War I and in World War II. So many good people lost their lives. And I want to bring that to light to you later on. So come back in about 2.5 hours, because I want to talk about World War I. And I want to remember those lives that are lost. And I want to say, they're not for nothing. 100 years later, you gave your life for something. And globalists took over and took advantage of that. And we want to make it right. We want to make it right so that your life that was lost meant something. Because you fought against tyranny. And with globalism, it's tyranny. With the EU, it's tyranny. So I want to fight against tyrants who control people and start wars that they shouldn't start. All right, guys. So I'm hanging up. But we'll be back, and I'm going to bring Michelle, hopefully. And if check back between 5 and 6. I want Michelle to be here, so if they're not done by 5, they will be by 6, because it gets dark early. But hopefully 5 o'clock we'll be back here with you guys. So I love you. Remember, it's not just a conspiracy theory. If it's the truth, don't forget to like, comment, leave your comments. And subscribe to Mass Faith 3, this channel, and to Resistance Chicks in case they shut this one down. Find us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter, Resistance Chicks. We love you. God loves you. God bless. Remember, it's not just a conspiracy theory if it's the truth. So I'm going to pretend like I know what I'm doing here. And I'm going to bring up the ending because I think that that's what I do next.